This is my second time filming this damn thing because my other camera battery died and then I ran out of memory space and it's been a jumbled mess today. Not going as planned. But anyway, welcome back to Full Course Scootering, and if this is your first time, welcome to Full Course Scootering. Today we're talking about the most popular Canadian brand, and that is North Scooters. Now we're talking about the North Transit Legauch signature deck today, or Legauch, however you want to pronounce it. So this deck only comes in the Junebug blue color, or it's kind of like a matte seafoam green blue color. We're gonna talk about it. We're gonna go from the head tube down through the deck. We'll talk about the specs first. Starting at the top, we have integrated headset cups. Obviously, just like any deck now these days. So the head tube angle is 83.5 and the height of the head tube is 4.25 inches. The deck comes 22 and 23 long. I have the 22 inch here, and all transit decks come 5.3 wide with no concave. It's just totally flat on top. There's no concave to it. And on the bottom you have the traditional style grind rails, if that's what you want to call it. It's not flat like the Atlases are. I have brake holes drilled into this, but if you ever buy the Legauch signature, it doesn't come with brake holes, so you can't attach a brake to it. It just says the word brake. A while back when I first got this deck, I tried to attach my Atlas brake to it, and I didn't really drill it right, so it just rattled around and didn't stay tight. So I just bagged it and took it off and rode it like I guess you're supposed to. My recommendation for this deck is if you don't like riding brakeless, I wouldn't really recommend getting this deck. If you enjoy riding brakeless, this deck it's not going to bother you. From my experience, not a lot of foot space on it. You only get 14.5 inches. It does vary with what size of wheel you run. So this deck can run 30 wide millimeter or 24, and you can run up to 125 millimeter all the way down to however small you want to ride. You could put some rollerblade wheels on this thing if you really wanted to. We'll talk about how I feel about this deck. My personal opinions, so that way you know what you're going to be getting yourself into. But everybody has their own preferences on decks, so this is just how I feel. Also, excuse the terrible grip tape graphic that I tried to make on this. I'm not the best hand drawing artist out there, so don't you laugh at me. The head tube angle, I love it. It's not like the old days when it used to be like the Ultra Pros. The Ultra Pros used to be, what was it? It was a 81.5 degree head tube angle, which is super small. This is 83.5. But the thing that I've noticed with different head tube angles is if it's more low, like 82.5 or 81.5, it's easier to do whips. You can whip them a lot faster, and with a steeper head tube angle like 83.5 and 84, you can get kind of better pop, and it's a little easier to manual because you have a little bit more like a manual radius, if that makes sense. That's kind of something to look into if you're getting decks. If you like to do like more park stuff, definitely shoot for more of like a shorter deck and a less steep head tube angle. But if you're more of a street rider, you can ride a longer deck with a more steep head tube angle because it'll help with pop and manuals and balancing and all that. So coming down to the head tube, it kind of reminds me of like an attic deck, but if you kind of like look around and kind of inspect the deck, they kind of have all different kinds of holes that kind of go different places and stuff. It kind of makes it more strong. It gives it a little bit more material for it to, I guess, keep it together. It is a forged head tube, so the steer tube and the neck is forged, but it is welded at the deck point. Another thing that I don't really care for that much is a lot of companies are making their decks that are this kind of style head tube. They're really like fat down here at the bottom, so they take up a lot of space. So the length on this head tube at the bottom all the way to the weld is 3.75 inches or 3 3/4. If they just moved the head tube flush with the blunt plate, it would give you maybe 3/4 of an inch to half an inch, that much more foot space on the deck. You could get into blunts easier, and if you like to do foot jams or whatever, you got that a little bit more room right there to get your foot and tootsies to get onto the wheel for foot jams. I don't know why a lot of companies don't really do that. It probably makes it more strong if you don't put it up at the front of the deck, because it doesn't have that kind of like leverage on the front of it. But this deck is cracked right here. I think this is where most transits break. I mean, this thing's been cracked for a long time. I mean, if you're a really heavy rider and you ride really hard, or if you're just big like me, I think I weigh around 200 pounds, these decks are freaking strong. They're made out of 6061 aluminum. So this deck is, I'll turn it on its side here. If you've ever ridden a Paramount, TSI Paramount, this deck is very similar to the thickness of it. This deck is 5/8 of an inch thick, but that also leads to it bending and bananaing a lot easier, like I have done. See how it's just bananaed. And the thing with bananaing is it makes the head tube angle less steep, I guess. So your bars are more into you like you would like with a smaller head tube angle. That kind of bothered me. And then if you like to do 50/50s, if you land on a ledge or a rail, you can feel it like it kind of rocks back and forth. So that's, I hate the way that feels. And you slip out of 50/50s like a lot easier. The foot space on it, I don't really care for. It's, going back to the head tube again, it just takes up so much room for it. I mean, I could have ridden a 23, but I just don't like the way the 23s feel for whips, because it takes so much more effort to whip it than it does a 22. Maybe if it was like a 22.5, I wouldn't be that bad. Also, it's because I run 120mm wheels, so if I ran like 110s, it would take up just a little bit less room. Another thing that I didn't really care for is no brake holes. I kind of feel weird not riding without a brake, and it took me a long time to get used to it. A lot of people like riding without a brake. I always push my foot into the wheel, and then it like slows me down, or I fall, and it kind of chews up my shoes and all that. So, I mean, at least just put brake holes in it. Or maybe even like mark out like where to drill for brake holes or something like that. I guess I should have just gotten a regular Transit, because if you do get the regular Transit and not the Legauch signature, then it comes with a brake. But the Legauch, the Junebug color, is the only one that doesn't come with brake holes. Now, I love that this deck comes with 2 sets of spacers, one for 24mm wheels and one for 30mm wheels. Another thing that kind of felt weird to me for this was no concave. You know, most decks have at least like a little tiny bit of concave, but this one was just totally flat. And to me it feels weird because it almost feels like convex. So it was more, it feels kind of like you're riding like a 2x4 almost, if that makes sense. There's no feel to the deck in my opinion. I know they kept the zero concave because a lot of people like the way that it felt, but in my personal experience, I don't really care for it. It just doesn't feel like a scooter deck underneath me. It's just kind of bland feeling. Coming down to the plugs here, the deck ends or whatever you want to call them, they're kind of more square. 5.0s and stuff don't really slide as well, but it protects the deck a lot more. I kind of wish the North had like an option for you to take the plugs out, because they're so thick and heavy, it kind of makes whips not come around as easy, so you have to kind of really crank it. I mean, I like the color of them, I like the idea, but you know, they need to make it so that you can run no plugs as well. And that's another reason why I didn't get the 23, is because 23, since it's a longer deck, it makes it harder to whip. Another weird thing that I noticed, I don't know why it did that, but there's this crack up here at the top, on the top up here. I don't know how that even like formed, because there's one little spot that it didn't bend like that. So I don't know if it was the plug that was bending or what, but the other side was kind of starting to do it too. It was just like a little bit of a bulge. I guess this was a spec that I forgot to say, is it comes, I looked on North Scooter's website and it says that it's 4 pounds, no ounces or anything, so it's just straight 4 pounds. It's not the lightest deck, but it's not the heaviest. It's kind of like right in the middle. So if you are looking for this deck, you can pick it up at Beamer's Action Sports. That's where I get all of my stuff. We're working on a website. For right now, if you want to support this channel and support Beamer's, you're going to have to call them. He does have a 23-inch version of this in, along with some other Aztec and Envy decks. If you give him a call, you can make a purchase that way, and then he will be able to mail it out to you. Like I said, we don't have a online store just yet, so if you want to shop from him and support the channel, you can go ahead and just give him a call that way. Or go on to Instagram and message him through there, Beamer's Action Sports, and you can talk to him that way, or go onto Facebook and talk to him that way. His name is Jason. It looks like it says Jackson, but it's Jason. Thank you guys for watching. I hope that this kind of helped you out with picking out this deck. But yeah, until the next video, we'll see you later.